I'm Rob Drysdale and I run Straight Line Beef, which is a fully integrated supply chain from dairy farm conception right through to consumption to the consumer. And we run currently about 4,000 head of beef across 12 units, and we're on Winterwell, which is our main finishing unit in Somerset right now, where we're grazing about 1,200 cattle. We've got about another 1,000 in the sheds. I've known Aled and Pruex since inception really. He's a fellow Nuffield scholar, and I was very interested in, as a vet, because I'm also a practicing vet, looking at the reduction of antibiotics and using that in maybe in more intensive farming. And I think Aled, when I read his report, sort of made me realise we were doing something wrong. And I asked him back in 2016-17 to look at a dairy farm of mine where we were having problems with cow health. And we started there, and he sort of convinced me that something was up with what we were doing with the cows. And then in 2017 I was working on a turkey unit, and we brought in Pruex there to manage on the water system and fogging for Campylobacter control. And at that same time we were building the beef unit here, and I just thought, you know what, we need to do something with our cattle. If we're going to push them hard but make them as healthy as possible, I don't want to be using antibiotics. So probably February 2018 we actually started with the Pruex system in the water, and the cattle started then. So somebody walks around fogging the sheds. We're using that to keep the bedding dry, and actually also it's a mist that goes on the back of the calves, so they're licking it off and hopefully sort of helping just reduce the bacterial challenge in the environment. And over the last winter, hopefully saving us a bit on straw, which it seems to have done. Aled had come to the farm and shown us that we had a biofilm in some of our brand new water troughs that were even only 3 or 4 weeks old. The system was finally fitted probably early February with the dosatron, and by that point we were fitting the last of our new water troughs. And then we're using a PIP additive that's stopping the slime in the water and going into the calves and the cows and the cattle. They're ingesting it, and within 3 or 4 weeks you could see that the troughs weren't taking anything to scrub. There was no requirement to clean, and Stephen actually even remarked, the farm manager, how sort of clean the water was. And from that point on, really, we watched the sludge come out of the water pipes, the old pipes that had been on the farm before, and after that everything's just run clear ever since really. We started in February with PIP in the water, and we saw the improvement, but the improvement really started to come in the cattle. We could see a shine on their backs, their eyes were bright, they were very relaxed, and we were hardly using any antibiotics for anything in the shed, and there was over 1,000 cattle in the shed at the time. And I would say that once our animals get past 200 kilos, unless it's a sore foot or a bad eye, we just don't use antibiotics. And that was something that was really interesting to me because I wasn't expecting to see that big a reduction. BRD, we're only treating about 9 or 10% of the calves consistently for BRD, which would be way less than it was before. But the other side was diphtheria, so mouth sores and swollen mouths, swollen jaws, and we've had no diphtheria. In fact, the calf rearer noticed the other day that we bought some calves in from one of the dairy farms that had diphtheria, and that was the first diphtheria she'd seen for about 1,000 calves. We had an open day in May the 3rd, and we use a bucket, big black bin for making up the solution for picking up with the dosatron. Stephen used the bin as a bin, waste bin. It got squashed on the day of the open day and it wasn't replaced. And over the next 3 weeks I started to notice the cattle were getting duller and duller, and I was wondering what was going on, and I said to Stephen, you know, we need to get that bin replaced, and eventually, being a busy farm manager, it sort of slipped his mind. Then when he did replace it, within a week of starting PIP again, the cattle, the bloom just suddenly appeared again, and really since then we haven't stopped. It's quite alternative, and to advise a farmer to take it on, I would say, you know, look at your water troughs, look for that biofilm, think about how your cattle look. Are they really clean and tidy? Are they really happy? Are they chewing the cud all the time? Are their eyes bright? And if it's a case of just getting someone adding to your water trough once a day for your cattle, then give it a go. It's not going to cost a fortune, and if nothing else, if we are going to get on top of antimicrobial resistance and reduce our antibiotic usage the way we want to, then I think Pruex is a really important part of that.